Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight for our Marin Interfaith Council monthly meditation. And it's our pleasure tonight to have with us Reverend Scott Clark. And before I officially introduce him, I just want to have a special thank you to you, Scott, for all the wonderful work you have done, specifically for around Golden Gate Village, and for your involvement, your leadership, your advocacy, and especially for also hosting the forum that was done by so many community partners, including MIC. So deep gratitude for you putting your faith into action. We are just inspired by your example and who you are. So thank you. And if you can't already tell, I'm a big Scott Clark fan, but let's go ahead and introduce him formally. Scott Clark serves as pastor of First Presbyterian Church of San Anselmo. He's a former chaplain and dean of students at San Francisco Theological Seminary, where he also worked with the seminary's program in Christian spirituality. Before moving to California with his partner Jeff, Scott practiced law in Alabama, focusing on constitutional law and complex institutional employment discrimination cases. Scott is active in the community and church, working on a number of justice issues, including the full inclusion of LGBTQIA+ people and all of our families. And it's my joy to welcome tonight Scott Clark. Thank you, Scott.
Hello, friends. Thank you, Scott, for that wonderfully gracious introduction. It's good to be here with y'all. I am Scott Clark. I'm the pastor of First Presbyterian Church San Anselmo, but in Marin Interfaith circles, I'm simply known as the other Scott. So it's always good to be here with my friend Scott Quinn. So the practice that I'd like to introduce us to tonight, and it may be familiar to folks, is a practice called, it's the prayer of Examen. So I've got this as the rather clunky description, a prayer of awareness of our days. I thought of stopping it, but it is, it's not a prayer really of asking or a prayer of even a silence prayer. It's a prayer that brings a specific intention to look back on our day or another time period, to be aware. So that's kind of the what we'll be doing tonight. Just a little background. The prayer of Examen is a prayer that looks back over the day to notice the presence of the holy in our daily life. In my tradition, which is the Reformed tradition, Presbyterian tradition, I would say the presence of God, the presence of the Spirit. I've used the presence of the holy to be a little broader. I just invite you to use whatever language makes this meaningful for you. You know, we're going back over the day intentionally, where we may have rushed through, we may have not noticed things, just to spend time to notice where we encountered the holy in all manner of circumstances and in all manner of ways. It has its roots in Ignatian spirituality and traditions, which Ignatius of Loyola is the founder of the Jesuits, so it's classically a Jesuit practice, but it's been prayed and adapted in the diversity of Christian traditions. So I say that because the Examen that I will share with you tonight is not pure Ignatian Jesuit spirituality. I'm not a Jesuit, I'm a Presbyterian pastor, but this is, I'll just contextualize it by naming my teachers. So from the Jesuit tradition, this is a practice that I learned from Beth Liebert, who is the professor emerita, I think, of Christian spirituality at San Francisco Theological Seminary. She is a nun in her order's Holy Names, and she's her area of research is Ignatian spirituality, and then I also learned it from Sam Hamilton Poore. So it's a tradition, a prayer tradition that's been adapted and handed down, and it'll also reflect how I've shaped my practice of it in congregations and communities that I serve. At its heart, this is really about an intentional review of the day we've just lived. As we're settling in, to use a Bonnie Raitt phrase, at the dimming of the day, just to pause and to breathe and to think back. It's a prayer of noticing and awareness. And it's only got a few steps. I believe in giving a roadmap so you know where we'll be going, and then I'll walk us through this. First thing we'll do is we'll settle in for a few minutes of quiet at the end of our day. We will ground ourselves in gratitude. We'll start out easy. I'll just invite you to remember something in the day that you're grateful for, and we will savor that together. And then we'll go through the heart of the prayer, which is a chance to review, to walk back through the moments of your day. And then with a set of questions, which we'll talk about in a little more detail in just a second. After you've had a chance to just think back through the day, I'll invite you to kind of sit with that and notice where you felt the nearness of God or the holy, or whatever language you want to use, where you felt the nearness and where you felt distant. So we'll hold those two valences and think about the spectrum of experience in between. I'll invite you to offer gratitude for those life-giving moments that you notice, and to offer your experience of life-draining moments for healing. And then we'll return to gratitude and give thanks for this day with hope for the next. So that's it. That's the steps that we'll be walking through. But I want to go in a little bit more detail on that number 4. So after you've done the review of the day, I'll invite you to a series of questions. And there aren't many places in my life I like to be binary, but I use 2 sets here so that you can kind of jostle our memory and think of those things. So you might want to say, where did you feel the nearness of God, or where did you feel distant? Where did you feel the nearness of the holy, or where did you feel distant? Or you could say, for what am I most grateful today? For what am I least grateful? What moments in the day gave energy and life? What moments in the day drained energy and life? I love that last question because I know what that feels like in my body. What moments brought joy? What moments brought pain or sorrow or numbness? When did I give and receive the most love today? When did I give and receive the least love today? I think that can give you an idea of the shape of the questions. But again, use your own language and come up with questions that ask something that is a meaningful way for you to reflect on the day that you have lived. So let's enter into this prayer, pray our day together. I invite you, wherever you are. It's so amazing for us to be able to be together, I think. Wherever you are, to settle into your space. Get a comfortable seated position. Notice your body as you settle in after the living of this day. Is there any place that's tight or that aches? Is there any place that, after living through the tasks of the day, actually feels energized or free? Notice the space that you inhabit right now, the room that you're in. If you can see out of a window, the world around you. I imagine you're seated in a chair or something like that. That chair you're supported by the chair, which is supported by the floor, which is supported by the ground. We are connected to creation, the earth, and everything around us. We are connected to each other through technology and also our shared participation in creation. We are here in these several spaces, all together in this moment. As we begin to reflect on the day we have just lived, I invite you to think of one thing for which you are grateful. Just one. A moment, a person, an experience, a sensation, something or someone for which you are grateful. Hold that. Savor that. And in however it's meaningful for you, give thanks. From that place of gratitude, I invite you to look back over your day. Go back all the way to the beginning when you first woke up. Was it dark or was it light outside? What were the first sensations of your morning? Was it cold or was it warm? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel in your body in those first moments and minutes? What was the first thing you did when you got up? Who were the first people that you encountered? Or maybe the first loved ones that you encountered were the animal members of our family, our pets. What did you have to drink? Did you have a little something to eat? Did you go outside on this gray and chilly morning? Did you experience a spiritual practice or a prayer? At the start of your day, what were you mindful of? As you moved on into the morning, what was the first word from the world that came your way? Either through nature or music or news, or maybe a call or a text. What did you do? Where did you go? Whom did you encounter? Did you experience moments of beauty or joy? Did you experience moments of challenge? Did you rest? As you moved toward midday, did you have lunch? What did you have for lunch? With whom? Did you read or walk or work? As you moved on through the afternoon, what were the experiences that met you there? As you began to move toward our time together, what do you remember seeing or hearing along the way? How did you make your way to this moment? How did you arrive here feeling in your spirit, in your body, in your whole self? And now you are here. We are here in these several spaces, all together in this moment. As you've looked back over your day, I invite you to hold all of that, hold its particulars, all of those experiences, and invite you to ask two questions. Any words that are meaningful for you. Questions that would seek to notice where in all those experiences of the day did you experience the nearness of God? Did you experience the nearness of the holy? And where did you feel the most distant? Thinking back over all those moments of the day you just lived, what moments in the day gave energy and life? What moments in the day drained away energy and life. As you look back over the day, when did you give and receive the most love? When did you give and receive the least love? Holding the whole of your day and this experience of looking back and seeing it again. I invite you, if you want, to offer gratitude for the life-giving moments that you notice. We come back to time of gratitude. And also to offer your experiences of life-draining moments. Offer them for healing. With hope for the day to come. As we close, I invite you, however it's meaningful for you, to give thanks, to rest in gratitude for all the ways that you have been in the presence of the holy this day in all the experiences of life. After our time together, you may want to write these moments down. You may want to write them down, even if just a word or two, so that if you choose to do this reflection day after day, you might notice how the holy shows up in your day over time. In the presence of each other and the holy. Amen. So I think we have a time for reflection. Is that right, Scott? Is that?
Yes, we have tons of time for reflection.
Yeah. So I have a couple more tidbits that I can offer information, but I thought we'd do some reflecting first, and when it's right, I'll throw some other possibilities out there, ways you can use this prayer.
So probably what I'll do is I'll put us on pause for the recording, so anyone who wants to feels free to share whatever they want to share. Does that sound all right?
That sounds great. And then I have a slide for the further little bit that I'll have. So here are just a couple of things that came to mind. One is, and I alluded to this at the end of the reflection, this is a prayer that's good for one day. We can have this experience. It's also one that its benefits, what it does in us that we aren't really thinking about or aware of, they can show up over time. So, just to do it over time, I kind of do it for a season. It's not a lifetime everyday practice like my morning devotions are. But I'll start to notice the same things are draining energy out of me. And I'll go, Scott, maybe you should stop doing that, or things like that. But you can see patterns. So I suggested as something that folks can do over time. As we're sitting here in December, this was a reflection over the last day, but as 2021, as we say goodbye to it, I could totally see doing an examen back over the year. Even maybe putting a calendar in front of you and flipping through and just kind of remembering what January was like. Where was I receiving life? Where was it being drained away from me? But to look at the year on that. And then I want to point out a difference. As I was reading James Martin's books, his chapters on the Examen, and he is a Jesuit priest. There is a difference in the way that I inherited this practice and have adapted it. I think a more Ignatian purist would have a little stronger emphasis on confession as a part of the prayer. So if you think back to Ignatius of Loyola, one of the things that they were doing, and he was training Jesuits to do, was to look back over the day and also do an inventory of, for that tradition, for my tradition, of sin, of brokenness, of harm. I might, I'm using kind of language of healing. So the language that I use is, has those two poles, and then I offer one for gratitude and one for healing, because that kind of fits with my spirituality. But I don't intend to leave that behind. If that's meaningful for you, if there's a way to find your way to healing, whatever your faith tradition, what the constructs are that you want to do on that, just be aware that in its original form, this prayer would have had a little bit more emphasis on that. And James Martin's books are good on that. So here's what I'm thinking next. This is my growing edge, and it's kind of related to that. As Scott Quinn noted earlier, one of my growing edges is to engage in anti-racism work, and particularly to engage in anti-racism work on myself and the way that I live, and to do the reflections of how whiteness shows up in my life. In ways that I'm participating in systems of racism without being aware of it. So what I'm puzzling with this prayer, and I have no answers for this, I just kind of want to put this out there as a concept, is if part of our anti-racism work is to discover things of which we are not aware, could a prayer of awareness like this, where we go back on our day, help us surface those things? I don't know the answer to that question, because it might be that I'm so embedded in my own whiteness and racism that I look back over the day and I still don't see it. So I still may have to do some other kind of hard work to surface that. But because I was using that awareness so much as I'm doing other work and other reading, I just, and growing edge is a phrase from Howard Thurman. That's why the quotes are there. But I'm just wondering how I actually love coming and doing this, because I remember a practice and think about, how does that fit, and how might it feed the other things that I'm doing in my life? So, but any thoughts on that, or anybody want to reflect further on the experience or anything that we've talked about?
And I'll pause this again.